Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the year's going well. Let me start with a photograph I took at 6 this morning of the crescent moon just outside my house. And I tweeted, "Good morning world, rise and shine." I didn't use a filter. The attack on the UN compound in Somalia was not an accident. It was definitely intentional, says Antonio Gutierrez of the UN. Africa Confidential, Adieu 2018, Legacies of a Troubled Year. Talking of radical political change and peacemaking in Ethiopia, together with the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, lifted spirits in Africa as other regions become embroiled in trade wars and a wave of nationalism in 2018. Three of Africa's biggest economies, Algeria, Nigeria, and South Africa, have been chugging along 2018, all underpowered in terms of their capacity to create jobs and sustain growth, indeed is correct. Ethiopia, they're saying, a perpetual motion prime minister keeps up the pace. Without question, the appointment of Abiy Ahmed as prime minister in March was the political story of the year on the continent after outmaneuvering his rivals in the ruling coalition. Abiy embarked on a quick-fire program of reforms, freeing political prisoners, encouraging excited oppositionists, and most spectacular of all, calling a formal end to the war with Eritrea, re-establishing diplomatic ties between the two countries. Appointment of a cabinet with women in half the posts, as well as a female president, female chief justice, earned him still more reform credibility. Ethiopians held their breath, expecting pushback or much worse from the security services. So far, Abiy has dealt with the rumblings from his opponents who've been caught off guard by the speed of the change and the build-up of popular support for his move. Some are advising Abiy to consolidate, but he shows no sign of slackening the pace. I wrote an article last year after 90 days where I was very bullish, and again, this at the beginning of the year, I said if you look at the continuum of political impact and change, Prime Minister Abiy in Africa ranks first. Africa Confidential about CONGO-KINSHASA, outcome of an electoral system built to fail. The earliest reports about the 30 December elections confirmed what many had feared, that they would lack credibility and risk throwing the country into a new round of instability. They're also saying in that article the Congolese are ready to challenge on the street what they say has been a deliberately mismanaged vote. I went back to that Paul Virilio comment, the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. Congo election results may be delayed by slow counting, says the vote commission. CENI President Corneille Nangaa said that by Wednesday, vote counting centres had received just 17% of the tally sheets. The African Union is already calling these elections basically satisfactory, which was always expected. I don't think they've called any election unsatisfactory ever. Nigeria voter turnout will be the key in February presidential and state elections in Africa's most populous country and biggest economy. Should have caused more of a stir given the challenges the country is facing. One clear message is that none of the main candidates have impressed younger voters. Security concerns may also tilt the election. The opposition accused the government of incompetence, losing the initiative in the fight against Boko Haram in the wake of several attacks in the northeast. Nigeria, in my view, is at risk of being walloped by a lower oil price. About South Africa, Ramaphosa's critical test his own man at his own pace. Ramaphosa has to do much more than fight off his political rivals in the system. He has to spark a new grassroots enthusiasm for the ANC well ahead of the elections in May. His first chance to set out his stall will be at the party's annual conference to be held in Durban between the 10th and 13th of January. I said at the beginning of the year, President Ramaphosa has made steady progress in rolling back the Zupta state and trying to put the rainbow nation on an even keel, but he's still in the slow lane, like Buhari's Nigeria. Sudan protests gather steam targeting Bashir's regime, says Africa Confidential, saying that the regime has doubled down on security. Government forces have killed at least 37 oppositionists in the past week. Army snipers in the capital picking off marches and demonstrations. And apparently they're now seeking foreign help on economy as protests rage. Sudan's central bank governor said the country is seeking funding from unidentified nations to ease its economic crisis as protests continue against Omar al-Bashir's 3-decade rule. Mohammed Khair al-Zubair mentioned possible foreign funding during a Tuesday press conference. Madagascar police fired tear gas to break up an opposition protest by supporters of the losing presidential candidate who claims he was denied victory in last month's election because of fraud. We came to erect a giant screen projecting anomalies in the second round election, but we were fired at with tear gas, said a lawmaker from Raba Lomanana's party. After years of brutal hyperinflation, Zimbabwe became known as a place where cash was almost worthless. Now investors are fighting over EcoCash, the country's homegrown PayPal-like service that has zoomed into the economy's cash void. Wall Street Journal article, really good, well worth reading in full. Talking about how the government has essentially created quasi-US dollars that exist only electronically in local bank accounts and are now coursing through the economy. But they are deeply devalued. On the black market, a $100 cash bill can cost as much as $350 in digital dollars. They are worthless, essentially. But it's an interesting article about Strive Masiwa and this battle he's got between him and some other shareholders. Mr. Masiwa treats Econet as his personal company. Minority investors get stiffed. We have a US dollar operating in Zimbabwe, but actually that US dollar is not convertible into a US dollar outside Zimbabwe. So it's not really a US dollar. This is a press statement by Zimbabwe's largest beverages company, Delta, on the decision to charge wholesale prices in US dollars. South African oil shares slumped 2.79% yesterday. Dollar versus rand at 14.5193. Oil bunkers in the Niger Delta. Seen in this photograph by Edward Batinsky via Wired. Nigerian oil shares down 1.15% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange up 0.72% year to date. Loan repayments to China will nearly triple from July as the 5-year grace period that Beijing extended to Kenya in May 2014 for the standard gauge railway funds comes to an end, reports the Daily Nation. Business Daily, weak house sales plunged real estate to a 4-year low. Britain issued a profits warning statement where the earnings are expected to decrease by at least 25% due to reduced returns from equity investments and a challenging operating environment. If you're interested in Britain's share price data, it's still trading on a very elevated PE ratio of 38.462. Nairobi oil share fell 0.16% on its first day back, and the NSE 20 retreated 0.39%. But we're going to find it tough at this point to get going on the stock market. Thank you kindly for stopping by.